Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Vargas. I'm a franchise broker and our company has been operating for 16 years. And I'm here with Sabrina Wall. She's the CEO of our company. And I'd like to ask her some questions. So we are talking about the new legislation and I would love to know what got you so frustrated about the new legislation.
Well, first, let me kind of set the stage. Our industry deals with and supports people who are looking to purchase or invest in a franchise. And we go through an education process where we teach them about what to look for in the franchise opportunity. And we teach them how to be a good franchise investor. And our industry has grown dramatically since I started in the industry long time ago, 18 years ago. This legislation is essentially trying to put very extreme disclosures on the franchise brokers within the industry. It's also creating a situation where it's creating almost like a gotcha, where people can be sued for these high consequences on technicalities, not on actual bad acts. And so that, to me, doesn't seem like a good use of effort or a good direction for franchising to go in. Another thing is that we started the association in 2008, and we always took the approach of cleaning up our own backyard. It was one of my very early mentors, Larry Carnell. He told me, make sure that you clean up your own backyard so that regulators don't come into the industry. And so I really took that advice to heart, and we put so much effort into training and educating and supporting our franchise brokers and their clients. So we've kind of been, in many ways, the class valedictorian because we've gone so overboard with the amount of training and support and knowledge that our brokers have and have access to in their tools and resources. So when you think of, let's say you as an individual is working really hard to do things the right way and to face challenges and to help people communicate and help people face their own issues as well. So you go through all this effort to do this work, to be the best in the industry and the most educated and all of these things. And then an organization that you're a part of kind of comes and says, you're unregulated and you guys have no standards that you work and operate in. So it just shows a lack of understanding about what we're actually doing and the impact and the good work that we are really thriving and living every single day in our interactions with our business. So it has been a very emotional and charged situation because I'm not only going through this experience with our allies kind of being the ones that are calling this need for regulation. But in addition to that, having all of these people that are effective, really amazing people that are like the highest quality, highest character people you probably will ever meet. They are so diligent about doing the right thing. And our culture is that completely. So when those people are feeling like, wow, this is not really a law to fix and support bad acts, it's a law to take out the small. And that's really kind of what it is coming down to. Instead of its intended or suggested purpose, it's not really ending up to be what they're saying it's supposed to be. And so there's misalignment, and no one's talking out about it. No one is explaining it. No one is educating people about it that are going to be affected by it, because the organization that is our ally and friend, the IFA, they are supporting it. They issued this regulation. They've worked with regulators to create it, and because they're supporting it, they're kind of putting it under this capsule of being responsible in franchising, but not really taking the time to be responsible in a different way. And the different way being, let's look at the root problem, which is the root problem actually comes from people getting into a franchise, that franchise not being what they thought it was, and that them not being able to work together well with the franchise, and then getting into a situation where they have a falling out. And that process of going through a partnership that is now falling apart is something that can be addressed and should be addressed, but it takes a lot more work and it takes a lot more personal accountability on everyone's part in order to really solve the core problem, which is these two parties who have gone into an arrangement together and are having a falling out and don't know what to do and don't know how to work it out. And so they end up just blaming each other and fighting each other. And now what the law is doing is trying to pull in everybody else that is a party or even at a very rudimentary level participated in this interaction and saying, you guys are all now going to pay with me, so that when this person sues me because I didn't have the way to work these things out, now I'm going to have all these other people that are able to be sued too, so that it doesn't hurt me as much. But really, ultimately, if you're just pulling in a bunch of other people to have better guns to sue with and harm each other with, that's not fixing the problem. That's actually just arming people with more fear and more problems and more conflict. It's just creating more opposition and kind of turning franchising into more of a personal injury type of situation where lawyers just look for technicalities to sue on and try to get the insurance companies to pay. And that's really what this legislation, the way it's currently written, is creating. And I don't think people get that who are supporting it. And because of that, it's causing a lot of support for something that ultimately I believe is quite harmful to everyone in franchising, because it's not dealing with the root of the problem. It's just trying to point fingers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you, and I have to speak up. Mm-hmm. As a broker, I have been in this industry for over a decade. Yeah. And it takes a lot of resources to be able to create the type of training and the type of support that we have. Right. And I always tell my candidates that, people need brokers, good brokers, right? Because at the end of the day, you're looking for franchises that match with the criteria that they're looking for. And we are very passionate about doing that matching in the right way. Right. So we're investing in these months and years of training for us to now be almost punished for something that we're not currently doing, right? We are very focused on the franchisee relationship, but also making sure that these franchisors are adding high quality franchisees into their system. So it's not fair to just put all of the franchise brokers into one bucket.
It's really not. And I haven't seen anything that actually quantifies the problem that they're seeking to solve, which is they're saying that misrepresentations are being made in the sales process and that the franchise and the franchisee have no recourse against the franchise broker or third-party seller, which is what they're qualifying as an FSO or franchise sales organization. Now, they're two very, very different parties. An FSO kind of acts as an agent of the franchise, and they do the work of handling the upfront sales process so that the franchise can actually handle and manage their operations, the thing that they were good at from the beginning. And so the FSO, I have been in this industry a long time, and there was a time where there were no FSOs. That wasn't even a thing. But FSOs came into the scene, and one of the really powerful things that they did is they contributed to organization and clarity and almost a level of procedural toughness in the franchise sales process, where this is the procedure that they follow and they don't deviate from that, because this person is going into franchising where there's going to be procedures that they follow that they need to keep up with. And if they can't do it in the award process, are they going to be able to do it when they're a franchise owner? So there have been this level of professionalism that the FSOs have brought to the industry have caused franchising to really grow. And it's not just growing for the people in FSOs, it's essentially teaching all these franchises how to be good at the sales process. And it's taking the burden of that process off of these new owners, so these new franchise systems. So what that is doing is it's creating a dynamic where emerging brands really have a fighting chance at becoming a big brand in this space. Whereas in the past, an emerging brand, it was like, oh, they're scary, they're super high risk. But with these FSOs, they're vetting out, hundreds and hundreds of models, finding the best ones that they can do well with and that they can count on and that they believe in, and they're checking them. And then they're setting them into this process and freeing them up to actually handle and manage the execution. So FSOs are getting a really bad rap, and yet FSOs have been game changers for this entire marketplace, and they have helped so many people to get their stuff organized, to be able to professionalize their own processes so that they can compete. And that's a good thing. And it's allowing so many franchises that are emerging to have opportunities they never would have had before. So this FSOs, they're acting like the franchise though. So they do have more responsibility, and their contracts with the franchise should identify that and what those responsibilities are. You take it from the other side, the franchise broker. The franchise broker has no contractual obligation in the process. They have no authority. They have no ability as a broker to make any decisions about that transaction. They can introduce somebody to a franchise, and that person may or may not go with that franchise, but the broker can't decide. The broker has no contractual obligation. They don't have the ability to say no to a transaction. And yet, what this proposed bill is trying to do is say, well, you do have responsibility, and not just the responsibility of what you gained from the interaction, but you have the responsibility for the entire investment from both the franchisor and from the franchise owner. Now, this is pretty extreme liability for someone who, one, is not even authorized to be able to say, yes, you can buy this or not. They're not the ones that are doing the sales process. All they're doing is basically vetting that person, educating that person, helping them to understand what they're doing, giving them tools, giving them research, helping support them in the sales process, helping them to communicate, present themselves well. They're doing the things to help them be educated on how to become a successful franchise owner by getting approved by the franchise. And for that individual who really isn't doing the work, they're not in the arrangement, they're not in the agreement to hold the level of liability that they're suggesting, it's really outrageous, honestly. It's trying to compare a broker dealer to a franchise broker, and yet they have literally no comparison. The franchise broker has no agency, they're not a fiduciary, they don't have any of these things that would cause them to have the amount of liability that these individuals are, that are in this law that's being proposed, are requesting. So it's just strange that so many people would be raising their hands and saying, yes, let's get on board with this really high increased disclosure for that. In its current form, the disclosure, it basically would put everybody out of business in the industry because it's so aggressive that it requires a daily registration, and that daily registration has a $50 fee for every single person and involved in the process. So for the states, getting a registration fee of $50 a day from every person, that could be good money for them. But for the practical application of running this kind of business, that's suicide. I mean, how are you able to enforce something that would wipe out an industry for something that they haven't even quantified the size of the problem? What I'm seeing is that franchise brokers, they spend so much time on a weekly basis. They're spending a good 20 to 30 hours a week simply educating people that may or may not buy about the model of franchising and how it works and how you evaluate different brands. They're not paid by that client. They're paid only on the successful completion of a transaction with the franchise. So they're doing this 20 to 30 hours of education every single week for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. Now, if you take that number, there's 20 hours a week times about roughly 2,000 franchise brokers in the whole marketplace. That is roughly 2 million hours of education that's being provided to the general public about how franchising works, the model, how you work together, educating them how to be a successful business owner within that franchise as it relates to following the system and working with the franchise and using the resources that are available to you. They're spending 2 million hours every year educating the general public free of charge about the power of franchising. And franchising deserves that amount of knowledge and protection. And we are the people that are doing that. Franchise brokers are the ones that are doing that level of education. And to basically threaten the whole industry and wipe that out because of something that it hasn't even been validated, it doesn't make sense. If you really break it down, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and you recently did a post on politics. Mm-hmm. Are you taking that back now?
Okay, so part of my leadership evolution is that I am naturally very fiery. I'm naturally more confrontational. I will stand up and fight for the rights of others. That's just kind of in my code and DNA. And I have gone through a very intensive process of figuring out what in me is causing me to react in fear in some situations. And through that process, I've learned these techniques that help me to process my feelings and emotions and help me to just be not so attached to the egoic side of life, but really more present and in the flow of life, and then operating in the zone as a result. So I'm a big proponent of these processes that I've learned and have been given to me because I've seen a dramatic difference in how I operate as a leader and as a business owner compared to how I operated before. And So when I did the post on politics, it was because I had gone through this process of releasing through politics and releasing negative charge around the other person. So let's say I have a political interest and I have an opinion on a topic and another person has an opposite opinion. I think I had to take the position of being really emotionally aware to the point where I was not just releasing on what I wanted, but I was also releasing to have compassion and empathy and understanding and really clarity on the people that were opposing me. So I started working on people that were opposing me. And that took me into this kind of breakthrough in awareness where I just saw, I had like real compassion for everyone. You know, they're just doing their best. They're just going through this process of life and they're choosing their learning. And so no matter what side you are on of politics, my encouragement in the post was to release on the opposite and try to give love to the opposite so that you can balance out and get back to the center, which is where you're truly in your strength. So I stay away from politics, and I went through that whole process, but now I just kind of shut the door and put that behind me. Well, this is a political situation that has come to me. And so when it started happening, I got really frustrated because it was almost like a surprise. Oh, here's this new rule that's coming out. You have a week to educate everybody and get them aware of this and be able to submit your comments. So when that happened, a lot of charge was coming up. I went into like full work mode, nonstop, 16 hours a day, working to try and understand everything, get up to speed on it, have my legal teams review it. I just had to get this knowledge, right? But this charge of like, what in the, that anger, rage, or like shock or surprise, that was all coming up too. And so I have all these tools that I use to release. So I'm releasing. I'm running on my machines at home, and I'm just dancing and doing all the things I can to get this charge out of me. And so anyway, I got through this process of releasing, and then I felt joy and I felt peace. And once I got to that peaceful state, what happened is I got the clarity that a lot of people are going through charge with political situations. This is an election year. There's a lot happening. We have all of our, members that are going to be affected by this. We've got all these things going on in the political arena. So the message the clarity that I got was that I'm meant to face this and actually feel it and go through the process of releasing that charge in a public forum so that I not only do the work myself, but I also show anyone else who is charged about politics how to have the tools to release that charge too, so that they can feel that sense of peace and that sense of love and care for the other parties as well. So while I've said things here about, our allies, and I've said things about the legislators, what my goal is and my intention in this is to use this to release that charge, and then help get to the point where I see all parties as really operating for the good of all. And I know that when that happens, when you get to the point where you are not operating from ego and fear, but you are operating from clarity and truth, when you get there, things happen for you. It's like life just starts falling into place exactly how it's meant to be. And you see that everything was for your good in the end. And that is what I want to help people through as I'm kind of allowing myself to be the human demonstration, because I'm gonna feel emotions in front of you, and I'm gonna process them, and I'm going to say what I need to say from the ego's perspective, and then I'm going to release what I need to release from the emotional intelligence and management aspect, so that everyone is not going from the direction of pointing fingers at each other and grabbing bigger guns to fight each other with, but instead are focused on putting down those arms and saying, okay, let's move together. Let's try to be more connected. Let's try to integrate in so that we can be more for the benefit of all of these incredible people that are affected by franchising. Because franchising, the spiritual stuff that I do is mental freedom, but franchising is physical freedom. It's freedom in life and freedom in your work and freedom in who you can become and the potential you have and who you can lead and support into new areas of life. So I'm 100% a franchise advocate, and I'm going to do what it takes to help these people go through this process so that we can all support each other, truly support each other, not point fingers, but truly support each other, and that we can win together as a group for the good in franchising.
Thank you.
You're welcome.